Today I'm going to show you how I use my Pako thread organiser to keep all of those threads nice and organised. Hello my lovely floss tube friends, welcome back to the channel. A very warm welcome to you all. I wanted to share with you how excited I am about my Pako thread organiser. It has been a tool that I have used from the very beginning on my full coverages, and when I have a lot of threads that I'm working with, this is a game changer. It always has been, and it became aware over the last month. I've been stitching up a storm on my full coverages and realised that this is one of the tools that I haven't really spoken very much about on this channel, so I thought it only right to share. So today I'm going to show you how I kit up using my Pako thread organiser. It saves me so much time, so much money, and then when I'm stitching, the process is so much simpler. Everything is in one place, the threads are super easy to get to, and they stay organised, which is, yeah, game changing. The Pako thread organiser comes with 50 slots. Yes, I know, 50. That means 50 different types of thread, 50 different colours of thread. When I'm working on my full coverage pieces, they usually come with in excess of 90 colours. Now, when you're trying to play with 90 colours of thread, keep them all contained and search for that one thread out of over 90 threads. I need something that is super easy to use, super easy to find my threads, and keeps everything contained, organised and tidy. Not only does it come with a standard 50 thread slots, it also comes with 10 colour code cards. That means you can use this 10 times over for 10 projects. If, like me, you're using it for your full coverages, if you manage to get through all of these cards in your lifetime, then you are a faster stitcher than me. The great thing about the Pako thread organiser is how easy it is to get to your threads. There's no rummaging. I don't have to rummage through a bobbin box. I don't have to rummage through my thread drops. I don't have to rummage through floss away bags. Searching for that one colour, for me, it's a drag. And all the time I'm searching, I'm not stitching. The best thing about the Pako thread organiser is when I finish working on my project for the evening or for the day, and I want to pack it away, it all fits into the project bag. It's very space saving considering the amount of threads. As I stitch on a lot of full coverages, like I say, most of my full coverages are 90 plus skeins. That means that I need 2 Pako thread organisers. Now, to just be able to store 2 Pako thread organisers, for me, the Pako thread organiser is a game changer. It is so easy to use. It is so easy to load. It is so easy to store. Everything about it is just super easy. All in all, the Pako thread organiser is an incredible tool to have. I absolutely love mine, and when it comes to full coverage, it is the first thing that I grab for. If you are a symbols lover and you love to work with your devices, electronic devices, to use your pattern keeper, your markup XP, but also for those of you that are paper lovers, it also works for that. I personally love to work from the symbols. Now, when we're looking at our charts, if you're working with an electronic device, normally I'm looking at my chart is showing me symbols. I don't want to have to then go to the key for the chart, find the number, then look in my bobbin box or on my thread drops to find the number to know that that's the one that I need to stitch. Me, I like it super simple. I don't need to overtax this little brain of mine, so I work with the symbols. The best thing about the Pako thread organiser is to be able to work from the symbols is super, super easy. So let me show you how I set up my Pako thread organiser for my large projects. So here's how I set up mine for my big projects. When working with full coverage charts such as Hayes or Charting Creations and those types of charts, you will usually receive a floss colour key section that provides a colour swatch, a symbol, a number of strands, the thread type, and a thread number and colour name. Additionally, you will also get a floss usage summary, which usually includes the colour swatch, the number of full stitches, as well as the skeins estimated. As I use the parking method, I can't afford to be too frugal with my threads, as there is more carrying of threads on the back of my work, meaning I need more threads than the floss usage tells me I need. That said, I don't like spending more money or time on kitting up if I don't have to. So my tip is to not buy more floss than you really need, and you don't want to waste more time loading threads onto your Pako thread organizer that you're not going to need. That is a waste of good stitchy time. Depending on if you are an electronic user or whether you are a pen and paper person. If you're a pen and paper person, I would print out 2 copies of the color key section of your chart, as well as 1 copy of the usage summary. First, let's turn our attention to the floss usage chart. I like to do this whilst I am working on my computer, so I will bring this up as a PDF, but for those of you that are using a good old-fashioned pen and paper, grab yourself a highlighter, and I will go through my chart with a coloured highlighter, and I will highlight all the lines with over half a skein or more in the chart. In the skeins estimated column in my example, that would be anything over 0.700, which is just over half a skein, and I'll work my way through and I will highlight every single one of these colours. If, as an example, it says 1.838 in the estimated skein, I know that is nearly 2 skeins needed for that colour. Now, looking at the full stitches column, with another coloured highlighter, I will mark anything not already marked with anything over 400 stitches. So that would be around 0.028 in the skein estimator. But basically anything that has over 400 stitches, I will go through and I will mark that in a different colour. This tells me that I don't need a full skein, but I would like at least to have half a skein available. Now, everything that's left should be anything that is under 400 full stitches. Now, for everything that I marked in pink, so that is basically anything that is requiring around a skein or more, I will go stash diving through my spare skeins. Now, if like me, you have full skeins that are just sat in a drawer somewhere, I will go through there first to see what I've got. I will pull all of those out and I will mark it on the chart to say I've got those. Then I start working my way through the blue section. So the blue section, like I say, is 400 stitches or more. This for me requires about half a skein. So at this point is when I will start looking at my part bobbins, part thread drops, anything where I've got around about a half a skein worth on something. As long as I've got approximately half a skein, I will use what I have. And again, I will mark it off on the chart in pen to say I've got that one. By going through this process, I've basically made it so that my thread purchase for this particular project worked out less than 10 skeins. Less than 10 skeins because everything else came from stash. Now that we've calculated what we've got, what we haven't got, now let's turn to the Pako thread organizer. I personally like to use a paper trimmer, but you don't need to have a paper trimmer. Scissors will do just fine. You can use a prick stick for this if that's all you've got. I personally find that very messy, a bit too sticky and a little bit on the tricky side. I personally prefer to use the method with a liquid glue. 1, because the liquid glue I have more control over, and 2, because it's a liquid glue, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. So when you need to sort of place things onto the thread code card, it makes it easier for you to maneuver it around a little. At this point, I'll print 2 copies of the color key chart. 1 is for reference and 1 is to be cut up. Using either your scissors or, like me, a paper trimmer and scissors, I will start cutting out the symbols and keeping them orientated correctly according to my reference copy. And I will make sure that I do all of this in order when I'm sticking them onto the card. Another game changer is the reverse action tweezers. I have a set dedicated just for this job, as they can get a little bit messy with the glue, but they are a game changer for this type of stuff. And using the other colour key chart for reference of order, I begin gluing each symbol cutout on its respective square. As I'm using the liquid glue, you don't want to try and use it out of the giant bottle. I personally have got some little tiny glue bottles, but it is so much easier to work with. It has a tiny little nib applicator, allowing for the liquid glue to come out in little tiny amounts and not gigantic blobs. Using either your prick stick, which as I say can be more tricky and sticky, or your liquid glue, which is what I'm using here, and a set of reverse action tweezers. I use the tweezers to help pick them up as well as hold them. I glue the cutout symbols using the reverse tweezers because it holds it in situ, because they're very small pieces of paper. And then again, using the reverse action tweezers, it helps me press all the edges so that nothing lifts off later on. You can see why using the liquid glue has its advantages. There is a bit of extra wiggle room if you don't place it right the first time. Because it's liquid glue and it's not a prick stick, it doesn't stick fast and become stuck to the card. It actually allows for you to maneuver it around where you need to make sure that it stays within the designated square area. I slowly work my way through the gluing and sticking process, and I'll go all the way along the card, and then I'll come back to the beginning of the card and then do the next row. After filling up my card with symbols, I leave it to one side for an hour before attempting to place it into the Pako thread organiser. Since most full coverages have more than 50 colours, I need 2 Pako thread organisers. Each one of them holds 50 colours. Therefore, if you need a second organiser, you just need to repeat this process until you have all of the symbols on all of the thread cards. Once everything is completely dry, gently, very gently, slide the Pako thread cards with your symbols back into the Pako thread organiser. Now we can turn our attention to the threads. At this point, I will have my threads that I ordered. I will have the skeins that I pulled from my stash. And I will have my bobbins and part thread drops where I'm going to be using what's remaining rather than full skeins. It makes no difference how you do this. The only thing that I would say is when you are loading your Pako thread organiser, just make sure that you're checking for each of the numbers against the floss usage chart. There's no point in loading up half a skein's worth of thread if you know that you're only going to have 10 stitches that you need to use. There is no point in loading up half a skein of a particular colour if you know that it only calls for 10 stitches. If it only calls for 10 stitches, you are only going to need maybe 10 thread drops maximum. This way, you're not wasting your time loading loads and loads of threads onto the Pako thread organiser that you are just not going to need or use. They can be used on another project and save yourself yet more time and more money. Wherever you have full skeins, so that would be for me anything that I marked in pink on my chart, the full skeins I will put onto the Pako thread organiser as a full skein. If it calls for more than one skein, say I've got 2 or 3, I will load the Pako thread organiser with one skein, and I will put the remaining skeins of that particular colour in the project bag, and then when it runs out on the Pako thread organiser, I will fill it up again with the next skein. This is a job for when you're sitting in front of the TV and you've got nothing to do, or you can get your husband involved, or you can get your kids involved. I will sit and load up my Pako thread organiser. Like I say, for me, anything marked in pink is a full skein. Anything marked in blue will be around a half a skein, sometimes a bit more than half a skein. Everything else will just be decided by the number of stitches that it calls for. So like I say, I'm not frugal with my thread. I just don't believe in wasting my time loading lots and lots of thread on the Pako thread organizer if it's not going to be actually used. The final step, when you have loaded your Pako thread organizers, you have every color on there that you need. The final step to keeping all of your threads lovely and nice is to do a very light braid. So I will go across 3 together, so 3 different colors. I will braid them very, very gently but lightly. So I'm not pulling them tight. I'm literally folding the threads over each other, but without any tension whatsoever. At the bottom, I will use a small plastic hair elastic tie to hold the braids in place. Like I say, do not braid them too tight. You will not be able to pull your threads out. This way, your project and your threads will not become too tangled. They will all sit very, very nicely. You can still pull all of your threads. We should now have a fully kitted project ready to stitch. I highly recommend the Pako thread organizer. It is designed to make working with lots of threads on bigger projects so much easier. It ticks all the boxes for me. I wouldn't be without it for any of my full coverages. This tool will definitely help you keep all of your threads organized on your big projects. If you like this video, please show your support by giving it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already so that you don't miss any future content. What can I say, people? Game changer, a total game changer for me. I hope this video helps any of you that are having issues with lots and lots of threads on your rather large projects. So until next time, people, bye bye for now.